before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars of your own money and invest hundreds of hours of your time, let me give you the other side of the story that you're probably not hearing on YouTube regarding side hustles. I've been a financial advisor for over 20 years. I've worked with many, many millionaires, and I've been a good saver, a good investor, and I personally have amassed a nice net worth as well. So let's go for a walk. Give me a few minutes to tell you the other side of the story before you take the leap on the side hustle. So, I think one of the challenges with the side hustle is you're diluting your efforts. It's hard enough to start a business, right? But by definition, the side hustle is, you've got your full-time job and you've got something going on the side. It can be expensive to do that. These courses are expensive. And, the success rate for entrepreneurship is, less than 20%, unfortunately. Now, people selling you the courses will tell you about the outliers and the people that have been successful, and maybe your odds are quite a bit better, right? But give me a few minutes and let me tell you kind of the whole side of the story here. So, one alternative to doing a side hustle is really just leveling up your skill set in your existing industry where you have a network, where you have connections, maybe even at your existing company, right? So if you're in the situation where you're making 1 to 3 times minimum wage, which by the way is where my parents spent their entire life. So you have to kind of break out of that if you want to be able to start saving money, if you want to start building your net worth. And so one way to do that is to look at, rather than saying, I'm going to go back to college and invest 4 years. I get that. That's the attractiveness of a side hustle is. And, in 90 days, you can learn a new skill and put it to work and hopefully start making some money, right? But what if you took that same 90 days and said, I'm going to get a certification. For instance, my youngest daughter used to work minimum wage jobs. And she went back and in a matter of a couple weeks and like $1,000, she became a certified nursing assistant. And she went from minimum wage to 3 times minimum wage. Now, in her case, she, headed off to college. But for a lot of folks, if this is your career that you're starting to build, if you've gone from 1 times minimum wage to 3 times minimum wage, now you have some extra money to invest in yourself, to further increase your skills. And one area that's always in demand is sales and marketing. And so could you, within the industry that you're in now, where you've got connections, could you increase could you get a certification, something that's going to bump your salary? Could you then use that money to learn how to do sales and marketing? And even if you decide down the road to do a side hustle, any entrepreneur, anything where you're running your own business, you've got to be able to sell. You've got to be able to get the word out about your products and services. So could you do that? So level up on sales and marketing skills. And, right now with the YouTube and all these other educational platforms, really knowledge is free. You don't have to pay a lot of money for knowledge. You can watch YouTube videos. There's podcasts out there. There's books out there. None of that, most of those are free or very, very inexpensive. Then there's also a platform called udemy.com. This is not sponsored. Udemy is spelled Udemy, udemy.com. You can get a lot of classes there, most of them for under $30, so very inexpensive to get the knowledge. And then you look at it and say, okay, am I ready to step up now and actually learn to implement? So knowledge is free, but learning how to execute, how to implement, that's where I think you pay for some of these courses, some of which are marketed as side hustles, right? So that's another opportunity, is you just increase your skill set in the industry that you're at. Now, this is for younger folks, people that are 40, it's not going to sound that young, 45, to me it is, 45 and younger, because, that's the group that has, if you have kids, you've got young kids at home, that's a very special time, and extra hours are extremely valuable. Those kids aren't going to be young forever. And so giving up those hours to pursue this side hustle, I just want you to be in a situation where the odds are in your favor and you're as likely as possible for those hours that you invest, for that money that you invest, to pay off for you. So people that are 45 and younger, I think the side hustle thing, you really have to think I think you have to think very carefully about whether that's a match for you. Now, if the kids are off to college and you've got an empty nest at home, you've got some extra time. And if, let's say, even if you can make an extra $20,000 a year with your side hustle, that's the equivalent of like having $500,000, right? The 4% rule on $500,000, 4% of $500,000, that's at $20,000. So, in this case, it's a heck of a lot easier, I think, to get a side hustle going in generating $20,000 than it is to save an extra $500,000. So on that side of the equation, for people that are older, 50 and older, I think it can make a lot of sense, just because the cost, the trade-off of that time is a little bit less, and it may help you get to the freedom sooner, the freedom that a lot of my viewers want, right? They want the freedom to do what they want, where they want, when they want, and with whom they want. And that's about getting the financial independence, and you can get there sooner if you have, side hustle income coming in, right? So I think it's different for people 50 and older than it is for people 45 and younger, right? Another alternative I want everybody to think about is maybe you buy a company, right? It's really hard starting a company from scratch and getting those customers and providing that value and putting in the systems and building the team. And, companies that generate $500,000 or less of cash flow, those are hard companies to sell. There's not a lot of buyers. I mean, the big private equity firms aren't coming in and trying to buy those companies. So maybe instead of a side hustle and building all of these systems and procedures yourself, maybe you buy something that's already existing. And, people will say, well, that's going to cost a lot of money, and it can. But I think there's ways to do it where you really minimize how much of your money you put into it, right? There's something called the seller note. So the person that owns the company is going to could help finance some of it. And then there's the Small Business Administration, which will give loans. So you might find that you can afford one of these companies with very little money out of pocket. There's a YouTuber, this is not sponsored, there's a YouTuber by the name of Cody Sanchez. You can look her up, but she talks about this on her YouTube channel. And the last thing I want to say, regardless of which route that you take, I think it's important that you learn how to share your thinking and your thought process and build an audience. So you build that on social media. You begin to share you begin to build your thought leadership with your audience, because I think that's valuable for your existing company. I think that's valuable if you decide to start your own company. I think that's valuable if you decide to buy a company. So hopefully this was 8 minutes well spent. If you enjoyed this video, I know you're going to like this video here that talks about average income for retirees, and this video down here that talks about 5 reasons to retire as soon as you can. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.